Hi guys, Mew2King, and I'm going to be talking about the PlayStation 5 games that I think will be the best. The ones that maybe, or at least for myself, the ones I'm looking forward to the most, and the ones that I think were even extra impressive. Now, the PlayStation 5 showcase was one of the best showcases I've ever seen. You know, I'm biased toward Nintendo, but compared to the Xbox Direct and the PC Direct, I'm just calling them Directs. Don't hate on me. I'm used to calling everything a Direct. Before Dumbo comments on this, I'm used to calling everything Direct, so I'm just going to call it the PlayStation Direct. Okay, whatever. So, in the PlayStation Direct, there was a lot of good games. And there was one game that stood out to me more than the rest because I'm biased toward the series, and that is, yep, you guessed it, Demon's Souls. And it's interesting because I was actually playing the Dark Souls series recently on Twitch in the past few months. So I really enjoyed the Dark Souls series. And one of the games I was planning to play next, actually, was the old Demon's Souls game, which came even before Dark Souls or around the same time period. But I heard that there was like rumors that there might be a remake, and there is. So what I'm going to do is be playing it for the first time, you know, no research like always, because it's more fun to figure things out on your own, get the intended experience instead of, you know, cheating. That's not fun. So I'm just going to wait until the new Demon's Souls games come out, because it's extremely updated, and it's probably just going to be a way better version of the old one. And I'm very highly anticipating that and looking forward to it. So my first playthrough of Demon's Souls will be, I'll be streaming it, and I'm very looking forward to it because I thought the Dark Souls series was so good, and this is basically the same thing, except basically probably even better because it's more updated with, you know, very high level of technology. The rest of these games are in no particular order, but I'm just going to be mentioning the next very long list of games that I think will be good. This is one of the very rare instances where the majority of games I'm actually looking forward to. Most of the time when I talk about games to look forward to, it's actually a very small percentage. But for the PlayStation 5 Direct specifically, for this Direct specifically, the list, it's actually more than half the games. There's a game called Project Athia, which looks extremely good. You didn't get much gameplay yet, but from the way it looks, from like the platforming, the fighting, the visuals, it just looks like it's going to be this extremely high-budget, massive game that they're going to put a lot of effort into. And I really feel like, just from what I've seen, even though they showed very little, just from what I've seen, it looks like something that's going to be amazing. Now, I know that's like kind of just early talks, and I'm going to wait, obviously, and update my opinion for better or for worse as more information is released over time. But that is something I'm keeping my eye on because it just screams the word potential. Ratchet and Clank is a game series that I've always kind of wanted to play, but I've never really had a PlayStation like that. My sister had the PlayStation growing up, and I had the Nintendo systems. So I didn't get to experience a lot of these games, and Ratchet and Clank is one of those series. But I'm a big fan of platformers. I'm a big fan of, you know, combat, and Ratchet and Clank is pretty much a platformer for a lot of combat. There's like it's like rifts in space. It's like one of the new gimmicks. Like you could pull yourself over. It kind of reminds me of like the hand move from JoJo. And there's a lot of cool moves that they showed. Like if you get up close, Ratchet and Clank had this axe attack, but from a distance he has a basic fast blaster. He had like a sprinkler attack, which can like freeze enemies in place. He has grenades. I'm sure he has a bunch of whole different weapons. I mean, he's all about having the different weapons. So there'll be many interesting ways to fight. And that's definitely one of the games I'm going to be trying out, and most likely playing the entire way through. But I'm definitely going to play it at least for one full day. Probably the whole game, though. Another game I'm looking forward to is Deathloop. That's basically a game where I want to call it a shooter, except he definitely also kind of used mystical magic powers, and he also definitely broke people's necks. So this is like a game where you have like a bunch of... You're like one man against the world. You're like one man and everyone's out to kill you, and well, a lot of video games are like that, to be fair. And it's the fact that it's called Deathloop, that basically means you can like keep retrying. But the fact that it's called Deathloop and the way they described it, it's going to be one of those more difficult games, which means it's actually going to challenge you, and you have different ways of killing your enemies, and it just looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Like you learn a little bit. Okay, if it works out, you win. If not, you die. But you learn, why did I die? And then you have to keep learning. And I like those games because I like the process of learning, and I like the fighting, and I like the different ways of combat they showed, and I like being rewarded for like trying to figure things out like that. And it just seems like a game that just would appeal to me. I really feel like I would like that game. Kenna is a game where you're this girl in a forest, basically, and it kind of reminds me of some of those early villages in Breath of the Wild. I don't remember all the names of the villages, but there's certain villages in Breath of the Wild which kind of reminded me of some of the areas you saw in Kenna. In that game, there's basically like a few ways of like combat. It's like in the combat they showed in the game, there's like different ways of fighting, and I thought that was kind of cool because I like different ways of fighting. And there's like a giant boss enemy that she had to do like a well-timed dodge. Kind of reminds me of like the harder bosses in Dark Souls when they do like this, and then they swing down, and you have to like learn or guess their timing, and then you do like invincibility, evasion stuff. And I kind of like those concepts too. And the graphics are really pretty and serene. So the combination of what I've seen so far, it has piqued my interest. So that is another thing to keep my eye on. Hitman 3, I might cosplay this character, maybe. It might sub gold at some point, you know. I mean, I got the bald head, it'll be more bald soon. But anyway, and that's that. I've never actually played the Hitman's games, but from what I've heard from other people, those Hitman games are pretty good. And it just seems like it's fun to just like, you're like one man, you're like an assassin, and you have to like, oh, I don't know if that's the right word, and you just have to find a way to like kill the enemy. Sackboy is a platformer game that is also multiplayer, and apparently that the last game, Little Big Planet, yeah, I never actually played it, but I heard of it, and I heard it was a pretty good game, like, and a pretty big game. So multiplayer platformer game, I mean, I'm down for that. I mean, I love platformers. It's multiplayer. It's a big game. Probably going to put a lot of effort into it. It's definitely something I'll look into. Godfall is a game where you're basically like these armored units, kind of like an armored unit in Dark Souls, except you're fighting each other and you have like a lot of different combat moves. But it's like the open-ended. It's not like a combat game. It's like it is, but it's like an open-ended like main world that reminds me of Dark Souls. But there's a lot of like different combat moves you can use, and that's basically the gist of it. I don't know too much info on it yet, but from what I've seen so far, you know, I like the Dark Souls series a lot, so I get good vibes from it. So I'm going to look into that game too. Another game that's similar to that is a Ghostwire Tokyo. You're basically in Tokyo, except it's kind of like anime-esque, dark and gloomy. It reminded me a lot of anime for some reason, and so you basically have a lot of cool powers. Like you have like elemental powers, and you're pretty much just going around these creepy worlds and defeating creepy enemies that glow in the dark. It wasn't too much info shown, but from what I have seen, just looked pretty interesting. I don't think I've ever played a game like that, so it's kind of hard to judge something on a game genre I've never really played, but it did pique my interest. Another game that looks interesting to me is Oddworld Soulstorm. You're basically an alien in this game, and this 2D platformer game, and there's a lot of death, and you're pretty much the only hope for your species survival. And as I said, I like platformer games, and that type of game, from what I've seen so far, looks pretty interesting to me. Now, other people may be like, okay, it's too gross and disgusting, so maybe they don't want to try it, but that is something I will look into. Spider-Man. I've never played a Spider-Man game, but the graphics on this new one look very interesting. And I don't really know much of what the gameplay is like because they almost entirely showed cutscenes or things that looked like cutscenes. So I can't really comment on what the actual gameplay is like. But from what I have seen so far, it looks like they're putting a lot of effort into this. So I will keep my eye on this one. Returnal is a game where you're basically this lady on like an alien planet. She's also in some death loop, apparently, but that just means you can keep retrying, and it means it's probably going to be a difficult game because they wouldn't make the story set up like that if it wasn't going to be difficult, in my opinion. You're basically on an alien planet. There's like dark worlds and fights, and there's some interesting combat, and well, there's not too much info yet because a lot of the combat screens look like you're shooting a blaster or fighting both large and small enemies. So I'm going to be looking into this one more because it's not enough info yet, but definitely it has intrigued me. Horizon is a game that that was like, in my opinion, graphics-wise, it looks like the prettiest game that I've seen, at least from the cutscenes that they've shown so far. I've looked into the last Horizon, and it kind of reminded me a lot of Breath of the Wild, where it's like open-ended. You just have this giant, vast world around you, except in Horizon, it seems like you use the bow and arrow very frequently, whereas in Zelda, in the Zelda game, you're using a lot of different combat a lot of time. Horizon seemed a little more arrow-based by comparison. I've never actually played the Horizon game, although I have played Breath of the Wild and seen some vids on Horizon, so I could say that the budget into this looks very, very nice because of the graphics, and I enjoyed Breath of the Wild a lot, so maybe I'll enjoy that game too. So I'll look into that. I've never played the Resident Evil game, but there is a new Resident Evil game coming out, which I'm also considering trying. Keep in mind, I've never played these types of games before, so it's hard to really comment. And they didn't really show gameplay much. They really just was focused on like the movie, the graphics, the story, because they were probably trying to show off, hey, look how good our PlayStation 5 graphics are. You know, that's why a lot of the game devs is probably just, hey, we're going to show off the graphics to get people excited and stuff. And I get it, but I always like more gameplay, so I didn't really know what the gameplay was. But you know, Resident Evil is a very known, popular series. I'm sure they won't mess that up. Destruction All Stars is a game where you basically a bunch of goofy characters in cars fighting each other, and you can also get out of the cars and I guess fight or do stunts and stuff. They didn't really tell you exactly what it was outside of like car fighting game, but I mean, I've played Mario Kart Balloon Battle and I like Mario Kart Balloon Battle, so maybe I'll like this too. And then there's a game I know Salem's going to get 100%, which is it's a game called Stray with Where You Cat. They didn't really show what you really do, but I mean, I guess you're a cat, and Salem loves cats. And then there's old games like Grand Theft Auto 5, which is like an old game. I'm probably going to sub-go or something because it's the exact same game as like a decade ago or something. But I've never played it, and can you imagine me can you imagine me robbing banks and stuff? Like come on. As you can see, there's a very large list of games, and I probably missed some, but I pretty much named over half the games. Oh, and let me just name one other one. There's also Gran Turismo. I loved Gran Turismo 1. I used to make like 900 horsepower cars and stuff, but like the new one, it didn't look fast enough for me. Yeah, I'm biased toward F-Zero GX. Way better racing game than like anything. Sorry. You gotta state some facts sometimes. Anyway, dude, the list is just too big. The PlayStation 5 just has too many good games. I'm not even sure which ones to prioritize. If their PlayStation 5 releases with a bunch of new games, the first thing I'm going to do is play Demon's Souls, and the second thing I'm going to do is I don't know. Because there's just too many games. I don't know what else to say. But yeah, that's my thoughts and opinions so far. I'm definitely getting a PS5, and I'm definitely playing Demon's Souls, and I'm definitely going to play a solid fraction of what I've said so far. So if you want to let me know in the comments below what you think the best PlayStation 5 games are going to be, and or the games you think I should either stream and or stream on Twitch and or make more YouTube videos on, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Before leaving, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. If you want to help us out even more, click on the join button that's next to subscribe and become a member. That's optional, but it would help us out a lot. Anyway, with all that said, thanks for watching. See you guys later.